Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So in front of me I have Excalibur 9 tray dehydrator, which I've purchased 9 months ago. I have done an initial video when I've got the dehydrator, and it wasn't particularly the best. It was honest truth of how I felt when I opened this up, considering I've paid about £325, I believe, and that was 9 months ago. So I've been getting the messages from you guys to actually ask you how I'm getting on with this and to see what are sort of a good and a bad points about it. So I thought, well, 9 months is a good time. I've given it a really good run. So I thought it's a good time to make a video for you of, especially if you're interested in purchasing one of those. First of all, guys, okay, I'll put the link down of my initial video up there. And to be fair, my initial things that were wrong with the dehydrator are still there, and the issues are kind of still there. However, as you can see, it is still here. I wasn't sure whether at some point I should have been returning this, because I felt a somewhat shortchanged when paying that sort of money for something that I felt was a bit subpar in terms of the quality. So my initial issues were with the fact that it was £325, and it is by far more expensive than the majority of the dehydrators. I had my initial dehydrator, which is Andrew James, the ones you can stack the trays up, and I had this one for about 10 or 12 years. It was time it had to go. So before purchasing this one, I purchased another two, which are slightly compacted dehydrators, and they all ended up coming back for refund, because I just didn't feel that even for say £150 or £200, they kind of were worth the money for the space sake and certain other aesthetics. So aesthetically, as you can see, guys, this is a pretty much of a monster, and it's not particularly good looking. So that's the first thing I didn't like about it when I opened the box. The texture, the finish on this is kind of textured. It looks a bit like a 60s ceiling, but nonetheless, it is what it is. My other problem with that was the controls, that they don't particularly fit really snugly. And when I managed to get one of those little knobbits off, I couldn't put it back on properly, and it did take me about 10 minutes to do that. No, you don't have to take them off, but they do seem to pop off occasionally as the timer goes. The temperature ones seem to come off on one side. So it's basically somehow internally, they're not kind of parallel or lined up properly. It's not a big deal. It doesn't seem to affect how it's working, but nonetheless, for £325, it is an issue I don't expect to have. Right, the cons of the thing, guys, because it is very large, and I understand that it is what it is, which is also, it's positive. But if you have a small kitchen, for example, when you put this in a worktop here and you leave the allocated amount of space behind, you are very close to the edge of the worktop. And this is not particularly great. For the same time, it does sweat a lot. And I mean a lot. When you put a high moisture food in there, it sweats, okay? And I appreciate that all the dehydrators, you dehydrate the food, you take the moisture out, but generally you have, especially the centrifuged ones, that when they have the propeller in the middle, the moisture able to escape through the holes at the top. Here, they haven't even created a fan to get the moisture out, so it basically sweats all the way around the door and underneath. So, as I said before, if you guys have a wooden worktop that's not been treated, that will saturate it in water. And I mean this, guys, if I load this fully, okay, and within sort of half an hour, I have to come back and mop it with a kitchen towel, and it will be really wet, and it will be wet all the way underneath. At the same time as well, you have to be careful where you put this next to, because again, as the air comes out and the moisture comes out, it also comes out from the side. So I don't keep this in the kitchen, is in my utility, where I've got a lot of other things, including a solar bit. And I've noticed the first time I've put it in there, one of my power things was there. It was covered in condensation, because it was unfortunately a little bit too close to it. Although it wasn't close, if that makes sense, but it did emit a lot of moisture from the side as well. So this is were really my downsides of the dehydrator originally. So another thing, guys, the downside was and still is the door, but it's kind of as a plus point and a minus point. The door comes off like this, right? And it is somewhat annoying because it doesn't always go in properly. You have to sort of move it forward, okay? So to make sure that the gap is even. This is what the brochure tells you, to make sure the door is properly closed. At the same time, okay, if you are having this on the worktop this way, it's so easy to nudge it. It's honestly, guys, you slight movement, something get caught underneath and the door comes off, and you don't want to smash it. So this is that. So apart from that, guys, that was really all the negatives, and also the fact it is so loud. It is very loud. It's louder than any of the dehydrators I've tried, and I appreciate it's big. I wouldn't want to say it's industrial, but it's not, because it's for a household use only, but it is very noisy, unfortunately. Even sitting in utility with the door closed, I can still hear it resonate, especially if something's on a worktop further down, it will just vibrate. So this is not particularly the best of things. So now, guys, let's have a look at the positives. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the door. Okay, I told you it's a bit odd one. Yes, it's annoying and it comes off, but at the same time, where if you are in a slightly awkward position, okay, I have this dehydrator even in utility on the side, because it's just, as I said, there's just not enough space for the cable and for the moisture in case it'll be dribbling out. So I have this on the table across, on the worktop across. So it is handy if you do have something nearby. If you had the door opening that way, you'd be potentially nudging it. Okay, nudging it if it opens left or right, doesn't matter. And when you're trying to get the tray in, I've noticed with some other dehydrators, the door kind of gets a teeny weeny bit on the way. Maybe not all of them, but the ones I certainly tried, it didn't work for me. So in this instance, it is quite handy to be able just to put the door down, and then you can open the open your trays. Again, naturally, you want to put this in the front of it, okay? And I want to pull the tray out, but it's somewhat in a way. But guys, yes, you can put this on the top, and it's not a problem at all. So from that point, the door is also a positive. Secondly, guys, is the size of the trays, okay? They are huge, and you can see mine are got a bit discolored. I've done a lot of dehydrating, including a lot of carrots and a lot of beef jerky with like paprika. So it's non-aesthetically pleasing, but it's gonna happen anyway. But the trays, as you can see, guys, they are pretty large, okay? And they are fairly sturdy, although they are still warp when you put them in the heat. Unfortunately, even thickness that they are, when you put them in there, they do warp, and it's tad-what annoying, especially if you try to move your shelves in the process of the heat. But the plus point, guys, they are big, and the fact is that you do have that. I do find this pretty much irreplaceable. The other dehydrators, the generally ones, they have the stuck up the little trays like I had. It's very difficult to peel off certain things that get stuck to them, especially like apples or sort of any fruits that you do, makes it really awkward. And the fact that they do have normally bigger holes. Having those trays with the smaller holes, guys, makes a whole lot of difference. Although they do occasionally still stick to the black base anyway. So the point is, guys, I've gone for the 9 tray because I thought, well, if we're spending that kind of money or a little bit more, let's might as well be sure that we're able to dehydrate a lot of fruits or vegetables. So to give an example, each tray roughly can take just under 1 kilo. So on the best time, I've managed to fit about 7.5 kilos of grated vegetables, okay? I found that, again, like with anything, the smaller you grate, the quicker they dehydrate. And I don't mess around, guys. I don't spread this around, like make sure each carrot doesn't touch. No, because I wouldn't get my money's worth. It will take you more time to dehydrate when you load it heavily. However, don't forget, in like a couple hours time, you can spread this around. When things are shrunk a bit, you can spread this around. So when I load it, and I mean I load it, and I find that it works really well. However, at the same time, and I had the same issue with my Andrew James one, with the base fan. The back left part of the tray always gets done first, and I can't for the love of me figure this out. The fan is in the middle, so it should be still like top gets less and the bottom gets less, but the middle is fine. But for some reason, that corner here always goes down first, so I have to rotate, and I do have to rotate it 4 times, okay, to get each corner done. It does say in the manual you have to just once a while turn things, but I do this 4 times. Again, not potentially the convenience of things to do, because especially when you dehydrate small things, a lot of bits still fall through and it creates a lot of mess. However, I think it's something you have to do, and it is what it is, guys. It takes a lot though. This is the main part, okay? It takes a lot. So this comes to dehydrating time, guys. It is pretty much, I would say, a little bit more efficient than the one I used to have. It does seem to dehydrate things fairly quickly, especially things that are really, really thin, but it's kind of an average, kind of a norm. However, I do find that seems to do a slightly better job. Though saying that, to make sure, guys, that you get even dehydrate before the stuff started dribbling out. When I put a lot of vegetables in there, especially the high moisture vegetables, I put it on without the door. And this is another beauty, right? That with the majority of the dehydrators that you have that open like this, you normally not allowed to have it running with the door open. In this instance, I think it's pretty much a requirement that when you put something heavily wet in there, that you leave this open, because it will basically gives an option for the moisture to disperse, okay, so you don't have so much of a problem underneath afterwards. You still do, but nowhere near as much as by having the door open. So this is kind of a good plus for me. So another thing, guys, is obviously we talked about the finish, okay, it is a 60s finish, and I'm like, initially, if you have a modern kitchen, it is not something I would love to put in my corner and enjoy looking at, because it's just goddamn ugly and the horrible finish. However, it does the job, and luckily for us, as I said, because it lives in the utility, it lives under one of the solar things, and it's kind of good to use as a shelf. They seem to be for us, because again, with any house, guys, you kind of, well, we're so limited on space as you are with having many things anyway. So having something you can just dump stuff on the top, it kind of works well. Not that you can put stuff on it when it's working, because it gets really, really hot. And I mean, guys, the top gets hot, the side gets hot, and the back gets, because it's metal, it gets really, really hot, really hot. So you have to be careful. But the fact is, because it is quite tough on the top, when it's not in use, it kind of works as a nice shelf. So basically, like I think one of you mentioned before, if you put something on the top or just use it as it is, 20 years down the line, it's still going to look the same. It's going to be still ugly, but it's still going to look okay. It's still going to look like new. If you compare it to something, if you buy a fancy one, as a metal one, obviously they might get scratched, or a smooth plastic, they just get deteriorated over the time. But this guy, it's kind of is ugly, but he's going to stay ugly. There's nothing you can do about it. The last thing to mention, guys, I think, is the wattage and the power wattage and the cost to run it. This one is advertised, it is a 600 watts. Unfortunately, it runs approximately 615 to 620 watts. And unlike some other dehydrators, it doesn't drop. And what I mean is, you know, when you plug something in, generally they draw more wattage to warm up, like my 100 James dehydrator. It used to be 400 watts, so I plug it in when it's cold, it gets warm, and the 400 watts dropped to 50 watts, which was absolutely brilliant. Well, this beast, it goes a 615 to 620 constantly. So unfortunately, as not as efficient as the 100 James one or some others. However, at the same time, because of the sheer size of that, I would always suggest to load it fully, okay, and run this obviously as long as needed to make sure that you get the benefits of what you're paying for. However, it sounds a bit scary, right? You think 600 watts, oh my God, they're going to be like dehydrating something for 10 hours. But at the current prices I worked out, 600 watts costing us 17p an hour, 17p. Which is for 10 hours is £1.70. So I managed to dehydrate. Okay, this jar has 5.5 kilos of raw vegetables dehydrated. Okay, 5.5 kilos. Those carrots and stuff costed me like 15p a bag, so very little. So technically, I think that took 8 hours to dehydrate. Even if it takes you 10, okay, we're talking about £1.60 with the vegetables that pretty much cost you nothing. You would know where you'll buy yourself a massive jar like this of dehydrated vegetables for that price. So that's what I'm saying, guys. You have to be sort of boxing clever. So if you do decide to get this, you have to run it. You have to run it full. Like at any point, if I've got something I want to dehydrate, I wouldn't just run it with 1 or 2 trays, because it's still cheap, but I don't feel it's financially feasible to do that. So if I've got something and I'm going to find something else or dig something else out or shove some herbs in there, just anything, just to make sure that you get your money's worth of dehydrating. But as I said, guys, there are other dehydrators that do far more. I know some will do like 1,000 watts or 1,100 watts. They look pretty, they're smaller, but per a dry amount that you'll get, it'll cost you far more money. So you've got to kind of build this into your sort of idea whether you guys want to buy this or not anyway. So, but as a general, guys, it's still here. So they are currently, I think, still £325. I don't think they ever put them on sale over the Christmas. I don't know. But would I buy it again? I say yes, it's still got its downsides, but I think because of the sheer size of it and the certain aspects that I can overlook for it being hidden in a different room whilst it's doing its job and obviously wiping it out, yes, I would have to say I will buy this again. So anyway, guys, I do hope you found it helpful at all for anybody who's thinking to buy it. If you do have any questions, message me under the video or email me, and we'll hopefully enjoy this. And yeah, I shall see you in the next video, guys. Bye bye.